Wow, I'm really hyper. I don't know why I'm so hyper.
It's Muppets. Just excited to see
Eggnog, Muppets, Christmas. I don't know. These are a good combination of things to get hyper.
Fair. I'm very much like.
Yeah, that might be the outtake.
That's tragedy and comedy right there.
Christmas Carol was written by Charles Darwin in 1848, I believe. And
here it's Charles Dickens.
What did I say?
You definitely said
Darwin. Charles Darwin.
Okay, and rolling that back, taking that back too.
Today we're learning about evolution.
Apparently.
Oh dear. This is going to be fun. Hi, friends.
Hello, Poppets.
Ho, 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 y'all.
How you doing?
And welcome to Muppet Sex and Trauma. Well, not quite Muppet Sex and Trauma. I don't know. Muppets, Christmas.
Capitalism?
God, I hope not.
It's a good
Muppets, spirits, and trauma.
Yeah, kind of.
So today, as you might tell, we're doing something a little different because for those of you who are watching or hearing this, it is Christmas Eve. And we want to wish you a Merry Christmas. Or if you're not, if you don't do Christmas, a happy day.
And a happy new year.
And a happy new year. We will have new episodes for you in the new year. And with us today, you'll notice that we have no Jack, but he is being ably replaced by another Australian. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Charley, long-time friend of the pod. Is that how you say in the podcasting world?
Sure.
And I'll be on one of the upcoming Muppet Sex and Trauma episodes as a guest. And yes, us Aussies are all the same, so it's virtually like having Jack here.
Officially one of the pod people.
I understood that reference.
We love our Jack. He is traveling to Sydney soon and had stuff to deal with, so he couldn't make it today. And our other guest today, he is a familiar face to many of you, or familiar voice.
I'm Ren. Y'all know me from other episodes of the podcast.
Aren't you Ren the Barbarian, the YouTuber?
Why, yes, Josh, I am Ren the Barbarian, the YouTuber.
It's amazing.
You do also kind of look like Cindy Lou Who right now.
I know. I was going for like a Rankin and Bass kind of thing with the rosy cheeks and the nose.
Apparently, I'm the spirit of Christmas present, especially as the lights are washing me out. And Josh, Merry Christmas, my love.
Merry Christmas to you, Sara. It's a joy and a pleasure as always.
Do you want to tell the folks what we're watching, what we're talking about today?
Listen, y'all, it's going to be a good time. We spent time really digging in, getting down, into the deep layers of the seminal work from 1992, The Muppets Christmas Carol. And I think, it's only appropriate that we spend time doing that on this channel. So it's Muppets Christmas and eggnog. I have eggnog. Do you guys have eggnog?
I have eggnog latte.
Very nice.
Josh, I'm starting to think that you're a Muppets fan for some reason.
I'm not sure what.
Imagine why.
I'm sure, Josh. I'm sure you've never done this, but I'm sure if you gave it a go, you could probably do some sort of imitation of a certain Muppet that is maybe green and that maybe appears in this film. I know you've never tried it, and I know that's not really your wheelhouse, but
it's Christmas here for Kermit the Frog, and we're just all really glad that you're here.
Talking about Muppets Christmas Carol, the Christmas Carol, to do the officially stuff, was written by The Christmas Carol, written by Charles Dickens in 1843. Ebenezer Scrooge is a cold, selfish, angry, hard man who hates Christmas and takes out his anger on his clerk Bob Cratchit, his nephew Fred, and anyone else who crosses his path. One Christmas, he is visited by the ghost of his business partner, Marley, or partners in this adaptation. Marley tells Scrooge his selfish ways are dooming him to an eternity of misery, and he has one last chance to save himself. He will be visited by 3 spirits: the spirit of Christmas past, of present, and of Christmas yet to come. Through these visitations, Scrooge gets a new lens to see himself and others through, and it gives him the will to change. The next morning, he wakes to find it's Christmas Day, and he joyfully puts those changes into action. Dickens closes the story by telling us that Scrooge lived the rest of his life as a good man who knew how to keep Christmas in his heart. So, where do we want to start talking about this film?
Oh, well, let's start at the beginning. I hear it's a very good place to start.
It is.
It is.
Absolutely.
So Gonzo is Charles Dickens in this case, and he's accompanied by Rizzo the Rat, who is just Rizzo the Rat.
As himself.
Yeah, it works really well, the balance between the narration and the actual story, playing it out, and how they have all these little interconnections and comedic moments. I really like it. And I think, just starting off, why are we talking about this film? Because it is the best adaptation of A Christmas Carol to film. And yes, it involves Muppets, and it's the best one.
I mean, the Patrick Stewart one is excellent as well, but and even the Disney one is good, but this one kind of has a hold on my heart.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's such a warm blanket of a movie. It's so good like that, and I always really enjoy the way that they integrated the singing and the dancing into the plot as well, because obviously it's not necessarily a musical, it's the Muppets, and so they got Muppets got a Mupp, and they do a really good job with it, and just the whole time that I'm watching the movie, I'm just like just enjoying myself. It's a good time. It's such a it really is. It's just such a warm blanket of a movie.
I like that the Muppets and the story itself don't overshadow each other. I think it's a nice balance of Muppet shenanigans and the actual story itself. Because we all know the story of Christmas Carol. I think a lot of us probably read it in school or at some point in our lives. And of course we all know the Muppets. So yeah, like I said, it's just a nice, blend.
So listen, I don't know, fans of the podcast have caught on to this, but I can be an emotional fella from time to time. And here we are in a hour and 25-minute Muppet movie about A Christmas Carol, which is ostensibly supposed to be a feel-good movie. And yeah, it has its dark moments, but by and large, it's just that warm blanket that I talked about. And a pig and a frog are making me cry towards the end of the film. And we'll get to that part, I'm sure. But, it to me, it's a testament of the kind of universality of this kind of a story and this kind of storytelling. Just because it's Muppets, just because it's goofy, doesn't mean that it's not poignant and lovely and relevant.
Yeah, I adore this story. Not just the Muppets version, but the story itself. 3 of you were involved last Christmas. We did a live reading of it on my channel. Yes, it was great. It is still available, and you can hear Josh as Dickens. No, I was Dickens.
You were Dickens.
You,
I was Scrooge.
You were Scrooge.
Yes.
And Charley was Fred. We didn't know Ren then. Yeah. So we don't know what role you would have played, but
I would hazard to guess that a link to that particular video will pop up in the doobly-doo down below.
It will indeed. And I'm actually going to link another video because someone else made a video that I wanted to make. I wanted, as from my costume channel, to talk about how incredible these costumes are. Because, y'all, it is stunning. They actually did everything. It's so perfectly tailored and so perfectly period. Mm-hmm. But actually, there's another costume YouTuber who did a beautiful video about it. So I'm going to link to that one because they did a better job than I could ever do talking about because they have an expertise in Victorian fashion. So talking about just the remarkable amount of detail, because you can actually see like the time period shift in the clothing when they go into the past. And like they've put the effort into like Fozzie's wig.
Speaking of which, Fozzie wig, like they couldn't resist making that pun, could they?
No.
It was coming. As soon as they created that character, this movie was going to be made.
And they originally apparently thought about making the three ghosts Muppet characters. But I think it was a really great choice to create new Muppets for them. Mm-hmm. The first one is actually, that is a puppet they made and then they filmed it in oil. So that's how you get that remarkable floaty thing. That's
fantastic.
Yeah, it looked amazing. I really like the designs for all three. Specifically the first two. I think the third looks amazing, but it's pretty much what you'd expect. But the first one, The Ghost of Christmas Past, obviously is very childlike, but also looks just strange enough to be sort of ageless. Then The Ghost of Christmas Present.
I just want to hug him.
Does he look Does he look like anyone familiar?
He does look somewhat familiar.
He has a general demeanor, bearing. Yes. If I've got a favorite of the three, that's actually usually my favorite, because I think he's the one that inspires Scrooge to the most change. Like he's the one who kind of tips him over, and especially in this adaptation, by the time he gets to The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, Scrooge is pretty much there. But he goes from like, come in and know me better, man, to, well, they better die and decrease the surplus population, huh? Like, yeah. It's very affecting. And in most adaptations that I've seen, that's always such like a chilling, like, oh, damn, Santa Jesus, good Lord.
Yeah, he's such a chill dude. And all of a sudden, like, he throws that line back at Scrooge and it's like, oh.
Yeah, in the story, they cut out the rather dark bit that in the story there's actually beneath his robes the two urchins that look like skeletons. Yeah, I'm glad they didn't try and create that in Muppets, because that would have been scary as hell.
I mean, Gonzo and Rizzo were right on the money. This is a ghost story, like among any and everything else. This is like a chilling tale. Ooh.
It was a tradition in Victorian times to tell ghost stories at Christmas, and Dickens used to read this professionally, which is why it's so great to have Gonzo there to actually read some of these passages aloud.
I do like that Statler and Waldorf are the Marleys, which begs the question: are they supposed to be brothers, or are they supposed to be like a gay Victorian married couple?
The second one.
The second one.
Yeah.
Given the type of watchers we are, we're going to directly go to the queer interpretation. Let's just say that.
I like the.
I mean, Gonzo is a non-binary icon.
They totally are.
I like it of all the names.
And Rizzo did kiss him on his little proboscis.
It's such a cute moment. And he's just a little kiss.
I love those too.
That's very good.
Yeah. And it's so appropriate for Rizzo to be running around with the food and everything, because in the book, there are such horny for food passages that Dickens gets into. He like describes everything in this like deep detail, and it's just like, okay, are you? Do we need to leave you alone with the Christmas dinner here, or?
Look, my guy was a starving artist who was getting paid by the word.
This is true.
It all went together. In 1848, he was like, "Man, I could really go for a goose. Oh, that's really good. I could go for a goose."
I don't know about you guys, but one of the things that I love about this story is that even though it's a Christmas story, it's more universal than that. Like it's not It is to an extent preachy, but it's preaching kindness and generosity. We don't have to read it as exclusively Christian.
Mhm.
You know, there is a universal drive to, when times are dark, I think, look for community and generosity and coming together in the dark times, which I think this speaks to, which is what I think of as Christmas, because I have never been I was raised atheist, and I've never been particularly fussy about religion. So it's not that Scrooge doesn't celebrate Christmas. It's that he is bitter about Christmas. He's angry at Christmas. It's something that is part of his culture, that he is rejecting his friends and family. So it's not, I think, a story about how it's bad not to celebrate Christmas. It's a story about it's bad to be selfish.
It's capitalism bad is basically the message.
Yes.
For some reason, old Charley had definitely had some resentment towards the horrible workhouses and institutions of the Victorian era. I don't know why. Someone should look into his biography, see if there's a reason for that.
Old Charley definitely did have his thoughts and feelings on that, but it's like you said, it's universally applicable, and it's also just a story about somebody who's had their heart broken over and over. There comes a point in a lot of folks' experience where repeatedly getting the emotional shit kicked out of you can leave somebody with the impression that they deserve it, or at the very least, that they don't deserve happy things. And so, you keep Christmas in your way, and I'll keep it in mine. Well, but you don't keep Christmas, Uncle. And he does keep Christmas. He keeps Christmas as a bleeding wound in his heart. Just absolutely everything, that could have gone wrong in the course of his life to kind of steer him towards his current loneliness happened mostly on Christmases.
Mm-hmm. God, one girl breaks up with you and you got to ruin it for everybody. I'm kidding. It's a very shallow reading.
I mean, if I can disagree, but anyways, I don't
want to say Scrooge is like the first incel, but
when we think about Scrooge's broken heart, I think about that whole sequence of years and years as a lonely little boy.
Mm-hmm. Unwanted by his father. I think Dickens was using Christmas as the vehicle to tell a story about a broken heart. He wasn't necessarily using a broken heart to tell a story about Christmas. And speaking of Dickensian biographical readings, a lot of the things that we do now, Dickens was like, yeah, it sounds good. Well, that's it's a celebration of Christmas. Yeah.
The line, are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses? That's always stuck to me, like, since the first time I read the book, because like it's really sad, but there are a lot of people who unfortunately still hold that view today, that it's like, well, if you're homeless, then it's like you deserve misfortune if you're poor, basically.
Mm-hmm. Get a job, you lazy sow, or something like that. Yeah.
And I think the fact that he's constantly threatening to send his workers to the unemployment line for petty reasons, and then being like, oh, well, if people are unemployed, it's because they don't want to work. And just like, come on, man. Just.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in this version, like, in the book, Scrooge just has Cratchit working for him, but in this version, he's got, Kermit, Bob, Cratchit, and like a whole bunch of other mice, rats, whatever they are.
So, what should we do? Should we break down the scenes with the spirits?
Sure.
Okay, so does anyone have any thoughts on the scene with the Marley's ghosts? Other than, they're gay.
Okay, well, if we're excluding that, then I've got 5 paragraphs here that I just have to throw in the bin. Well, they're literally wrapped in chains, Sara. They're literally they were in the middle of a nice kinky session, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, we've got to pop over and see Scrooge and do this thing. But let's not get rid of the chains. We got to get right back to it when we're done with it. So look, it's there.
I was meaning we're just going to take that as read.
I love the thought that like Scrooge is like such like a miserable, greedy bastard, but like he does approve of gay couples. Like he loved the Marleys. They were his friends.
He probably loves it when they pay rent on time.
And they weren't his
capitalism.
No, he moved in after they were dead. I was going to say, and they were his roommates. So, but I think, did he move in after they were dead?
I have heard extremely good, a very good reading of the original Marley and Scrooge as a couple.
I think that Marley's presence is in the story and the Marleys in this adaptation is, to me, always a really like moving and affecting piece, because it's and Scrooge kind of alludes to it when they're talking as well. He goes, you're always looking out for me. And like, this is a man who has died and has been condemned to this purgatory that was of his own making. And he turns around and he sees his best friend / boyfriend / throuple in this version, and he, doing the same thing and making the same mistakes. And I would imagine that he feels both and just an overwhelming compassion and love, and also a little bit of responsibility, because he says your chain is just as long as mine is. And if they've been partners this whole time, they were in some ways making each other's chains while they were, sort of leeching off of the Victorian underbelly.
Scrooge and he were partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole executor, his sole administrator, his sole assign, his sole residuary legate, his sole friend and sole mourner. And even Scrooge was not so dreadfully cut up by the sad event that he was not an excellent man of business on the very day of the funeral and solemnized it with an undoubted bargain. So they were everything to each other.
Look, soul friend, soul mourner, soul mate.
Mm-hmm. And of course,
soul theme.
We do later on have a mention of Dick, who was very attached to it.
We can queer anything.
Some things just queer themselves.
Yeah. Yes, he has a young friend who was very attached to him. And I am 12 because his name was Dick.
Some days it's like that.
Yeah. So yeah, his only friend, and he cared for him enough to come back and try and save him to make this deal. Yeah, but I love the slow build that we get before the Marleys arrive too. All the little
with Scrooge arriving home and going up the stairs and
the bell.
Yeah, and in this we get Gonzo narrating all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And Rizzo, how do you know what's going on inside?
I told you, the narrator's omniscient.
Gotta love like Rizzo doing media studies.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of play with diegesis here, because it's like, the narrators were talking directly to us, so they're breaking the fourth wall already, but also the narrators were able to kind of be an omniscient point of view watching the story unfold, but also interact with the story. Like, when they're standing outside Scrooge's window and Scrooge opens the window and sends them flying.
Just to be up here.
I love that part. I also love
they turn the audience and they're like, this part's getting too scary. We're going to go. We'll see you in the finale, though.
And the lasso.
Yeah.
Fourth wall break. Inside a fourth wall break. That's like 16 walls.
The Tesseract break. I like the part where they go back behind Scrooge's house and Rizzo climbs over the fence and then just walks through it. And Gonzo goes, "You're such an idiot," and just walks. Like, that kills me every time.
You could have done that this whole time.
And Rizzo never catches on. He's like, "You could have just done that the whole time." He goes, "Yeah, why?" And then he's like, "You're such an idiot."
And then the Ghost of Christmas Past arrives. Yeah, we've already talked about what an amazing puppet that is.
Mm. It was a little bit creepy though for me to look at it first. I'm not gonna lie.
It's supposed to be creepy.
This shriveled baby face.
it's always interested me the design choices of the three spirits. And so the spirit of Ghost of Christmas Past projects this just overwhelmingly bright light. And when Gonzo narrates the ghost into existence, the first thing that happens is Scrooge's bedroom is just flooded with light. And in some versions of the story, there's a moment where Scrooge can't even like look at the ghost because it's so bright. And then it also being childlike and unsettling as well. I mean, it takes will and effort for Scrooge to ignore his past, but he does it. And so the just the intrusiveness of the Ghost of Christmas Past kind of mirrors that, in my opinion. And he still is trying not to think about all of the things that came before, because all he can think about is all the worst parts of it.
Yeah, I agree. And the fact that the ghost is always asking, do you know that person? Do you know this place? I think it's a nod or hint to the fact that he's been suppressing that, all that information. So he'd become a stranger to those people in that place in his own memory. And so the ghost constantly asking, him, do you know this place? Do you know these people? When of course he does, it's his own memory, but it's just sort of making strange his own past and emphasizing the fact that he's reacquainting himself with his own past.
Might say the ghost is shining a light on Scrooge's past.
You might say.
And that's why you're here.
Sam the Eagle also cracks me up to a little gag of like, it's the American way.
I mean, it's the
British way. I love the busts. And Gonzo's there as Dickens.
Muppets Shakespeare.
Yeah, and of course the montage of the sad, sad boy. It's interesting that we don't get an appearance of Fanny in this one. That would be his sister in the story, who comes when their father finally relents and lets them celebrate a Christmas.
I noticed that. I was like, that's an interesting omission, but I guess they really wanted to underline how like sad and lonely Scrooge is.
This adaptation trims a lot of fat. And I mean, it's an hour and 25 minutes long, and they insert musical numbers, but it definitely trims a lot of fat because removing Fran?
I think it's Fanny.
Removing Fanny.
Which, yes, folks, for those who may not know, is an old English name where they a shortening of I think Francis, something like that.
Well, I'll stick my Fanny out there. Removing Fanny from this adaptation also removes the extra layer of why he pushes Fred away so hard in the present.
Yeah,
because Fred is his nephew. Fred is Fanny's son, and retains all of Fanny's cheer. But Fanny died long ago, and was yet another heartbreak for Scrooge. So it recontextualizes Fred as just sort of being a like, oh man, he's my weird uncle. Maybe I should be nice to him sometimes, but also make fun of him in private at parties, and I miss that. I miss that part of it, but in this particular adaptation. But I also don't think that this adaptation suffers for it, because it makes up for it in other ways.
Yeah, and we've now definitely justified our explicit rating in the UK for the amount of times we said Fanny. You've got to laugh at the way things change their meanings from like Victorian times to now, and also in different countries. I miss I think that's one of the things they were trying to make it work for kids and make sure it doesn't, overtax their attention span. But I think it misses a little of the meaning of Fred to not have Scrooge's sister there,
Hour and 25 minutes.
And then we go to Fozziwigs, and they talk about costuming. They actually did lamplighter costumes correctly on Rizzo and Gonzo.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about and what an authentic lamplighter costume of that era would look like. Yep.
The little pinstripes and the little cockade. It's just.
Did you see Mary Poppins Returns? Like Lin-Manuel Miranda, he's a lamplighter in that.
Yeah.
Like literally, it's in the name. They go around, they light the lamps. Because back then,
No, I know what a lamplighter is. I wouldn't know what they look like the authentic costume.
What the Georgian era lamplighters would have looked like? Because this is like
it's 1790s at this point.
Yeah,
1810s.
But they did like the shape of the dresses and everything is perfect. It's ridiculous that somebody would put that much effort into doing that for every Muppet. But I love that they did.
The Muppets have never been shy on production value. Like the Muppets always go all in, because the only way to completely immerse your audience when they're watching, several dozen hands up felt for a couple of hours is to make sure that absolutely everything feels real in this world. That's always fantastic.
Even when they're monsters, and I just love it. And I love Animal on the drums.
Yeah, with his Mannheim steamroller shtick. And then that's where we meet Belle, and that's where we get the precursor to his next heartbreak.
I can't remember how much we're given in the source material, but she doesn't really have a whole lot in the film either. She just meets him and then she breaks up with him.
Yeah, basically.
For a woman written in 1848, she's actually pretty three-dimensional. Dickens, for the time, was not too bad on women's rights. He did champion Mrs. Gaskell, who's one of my favorite female writers. But I actually love that Belle has the agency to say, no, this isn't the life for me, and walk away.
I was just about to comment on that, because the entire lack of financial security that existed for women in England at that time, like him saying, I want to provide for you, and her saying, that's not what I want. Like that, to me, feels pretty progressive for the 1840s.
Part of me going into this wondered, I guessed, I already knew that Kermit was going to be Bob Cratchit, so I guessed that Miss Piggy would be Mrs. Cratchit. But a part of me wondered, what if they make Miss Piggy Belle? You have to see, a human actor playing, the younger Scrooge playing off of Miss Piggy. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't. They used another human actor. But still, I think that would have been funnier. You have changed, Ebenezer.
I think Ren wins the impressions game tonight. That was fantastic.
Yeah, that was very good.
And see, if Miss Piggy and Scrooge ever did get together and have children, obviously the boys would be human and the girls would be pigs, because that's how I understand the logic is that there's the two genders in the show.
Mm-hmm. The justification for this, as I've heard it, is that actually these aren't Kermit and Piggy's, these aren't the Cratchit's children. This is the Muppets casting to play the characters. So they cast young pigs to play the daughters, and young frogs to play.
I mean, that's how they're billed in the opening credits. It's Kermit the Frog as Bob Cratchit.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me sad, because it's like, if anyone has ever wondered if Miss Piggy and Kermit ever had children, what would they look like? This doesn't answer the question then.
That was actually in one of the reviews. I was reading about this before the thing, and one of the reviewers was like, they missed the opportunity to give us a prog or a
fig.
I was going to say, would we call them frigs or would we call them pogs? I like pogs personally.
So yeah, back to the Ghost of Christmas Past.
Anyway.
Oh, that's what we were doing.
There's a song that got cut there that you can see on some versions between young Scrooge and young Belle.
Really?
Yeah, where she sings about the love is gone.
I would have liked that. I know that often, and I've seen it before with children's films, where they're like, "Oh, we cut this scene or we cut this song because children aren't interested in like the romance bit. Like it's often like a slower sort of romance emotion song." And I just don't know how true that is. I know they do like test audiences and stuff, but I remember used to like the slow, emotional, romantic songs. So I don't know. I don't know how true it is, but I'm not an expert in making films for children. Whenever I see that in like production notes or something, I'm like, oh, they cut this because they're like, it won't keep the attention of the children and it's too focused on romance and etc. I always feel a bit sad.
Yeah, the feeling was that in test audiences, the show was too long and this was a bit of a dip, although Brian Henson did recover it, and it is in some of the home video versions. So, yeah.
I was going to ask, did this have a theatrical release or was it like straight to video?
Oh, no, it had,
or was it made for TV?
It was originally intended for television, but it had a theatrical release, and it did very well. That's the Ghost of Christmas Past. And then we have, we already talked about how much we love Come Forth and Know Me Better, Man.
Did I already say that?
I'm a large, absent-minded spirit.
That cracked me up too. I forgot about that joke.
Of course you would. It's a dad joke.
It was an interesting choice. So part of obviously the thing with Scrooge is that he is way too buried underneath everything that he's trying to accumulate, all of the things he's trying to hold on to and to control. And he doesn't have a lot of material possessions, but he has a lot of wealth, which translates to, for him, power and security, which are two things that he never really had as a child. And so he's always got his nose down. He's always got his face in his parchments, and he's always missing everything that's going around him. And so the Ghost of Christmas Present in this adaptation specifically is very like living in the now, living in the present. Like he's so present, he forgets what just happened. Like he's only in this moment. And I really like that I guess, flavor of this particular character that they come up with for this adaptation. It works really well.
You're implying that Scrooge has trauma?
I think it's safe to say there might be some.
It always comes back to trauma, doesn't it?
It really does.
Or sex.
Or Muppets.
Or Muppets. Jinx.
I think this is the scene where the musical aspect works best.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are other songs that, all the songs make my heart glow, but like the amount of description in the book, like on every scene and on everything to try and get across, that they managed to get across with one song.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you want a musical to do. That's what you want a song to do, is to just be like, just cut to the heart of the matter.
Economic storytelling, baby.
Yeah. When you can't talk anymore, you sing. When you can't sing anymore, you dance.
When you can't dance anymore, you go to bed.
That's what I do.
Look, the feet, they get sore. The rhythm, it gets lost.
No, actually, having been a theater kid, I know what you do when you can't dance anymore. You run it again because we are not leaving until we get this right.
Once more with feeling.
Speaking of trauma.
And there's our Buffy reference.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add on the musical, but I thought this was a good moment to mention just the camera work throughout this film is great, because you're integrating Muppets and humans, and there's a slightly different scale there most of the time, except with the Ghost of Christmas Present, who starts off huge and then gets still a bit taller than Scrooge. But I just love how they do it. It feels completely natural, and I feel like that's mainly with the camera work. And use of perspectives. So you're translating, you're both making it seem completely organic and natural that the humans and Muppets are occupying the same space, but also conveying themes. So you'll have sometimes the camera, over Scrooge's shoulder as he's looking down at a poor, miserable little urchin, right before he kicks them off. And then you have in this scene, which is really good, was when you have the camera actually straight from the perspective of the ghost of Christmas Present, like it's full-on first person. Is that what we say? First person perspective, like looking down at Scrooge. And I'm just immediately going behind the scenes, like how did they manage that? They were up on a ladder. Did they, because you can see the arms. But I love the camera work throughout this film, and I love how it makes the whole thing come alive. And I think it's one of the moments where I really noticed it in the film when they introduced the ghost of Christmas Present, in that, when he's in that huge form before shrinking down a bit. I don't know where else is going with that.
No, I like it. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, great cinematography. I really love the contrasting elements with the scenes that are filmed with blues and whites. It's meant to convey Scrooge's coldness, and then there's scenes in Bob Cratchit's house, and when the first two ghosts shows up, where they utilize more warm kind of reds and browns, to convey the warmth of Christmas.
It is lovely. And I love the set design of the Cratchit Street, where everything is slightly, it's almost the houses themselves are almost on a Dutch angle.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just beautiful.
Well, you see, it harkens back to German expressionism.
That was good. I like that.
I mean, it does.
It does.
There are shades of Dr. What's his name? Dr. Caligari's
Dr.
cabinet.
Caligari.
Yeah.
Doctor Who?
There are Doctor Who references in this.
I know.
Doctor Who references in this video.
Mm-hmm. They also use the Cratchits to answer the kind of the rebuttal that Scrooge gives to Fred, where he goes, "What right have you to be merry? You're poor." And the Cratchits are the most merry figures that he encounters in this version.
There are different ways to be rich. That doesn't mean you don't need money to survive. Scrooge.
Scrooge.
Yes, money doesn't buy happiness, but it sure does stave off misery. I mean, it won't protect you from all misery. Look at Scrooge, but yeah, but it could buy Tiny Tim some medicine.
They never explain what Tiny Tim's deal is, why he walks with the crutch and why he's sickly and dying.
Child actoritis.
He has the consumption, Ren.
I mean, Victorian childhood.
Of course.
Yeah, he was coughing in this version, so that's how I read it.
He's suffering from Victorian childitis.
I find it interesting that he's struck by Tiny Tim. And I think there's a shallow reading that it's just, it's pathetic child. But I think there's also he's just been seeing himself as a child, as a lonely child. And then there is a child who isn't lonely, but he is suffering. And I think I think he sees himself in Tiny Tim.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was just also thinking about Scrooge's father is physically absent, but his presence is felt throughout.
Mm.
And a lot of his experiences are encounters with father figures, Fozziwig, and even watching Bob be a father to Tim, seeing the kind of unconditional love, because it's what his whole thing is he thinks that love and worth are conditional. Then he sees, Bob loving Tim, who won't ever be able to be a contributing member of society, like he was describing himself in his flashback, where he was like, the holidays were just another time to work. And, Tim won't be able to do that. And Bob loves him still.
Really illustrates the fact that, men need healthy role models of masculinity. Who would have thought Charles Dickens making commentary on toxic patriarchy?
Unfortunately, he was a bit of a toxic patriarch himself.
That's going to happen.
Yeah. He had, this is his utopian dream of Christmas that he wrote for his own family, but years later he was absent a lot from his family, treated his wife appallingly.
Real case of do as I say, don't do as I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's often the way that, we write the selves we wish we were. And I think everybody would wish to be Bob Cratchit as a model of fatherhood.
Oh yeah, okay. I was just gonna say I want to be Miss Piggy. I mean, she's fighting when Scrooge shows up on their doorstep. Obviously, we're jumping for later, and she's just like, "Let me at him, let me at him."
Talk to me, I talk back.
That is the defender of the family.
I think every nice, friendly, harmless frog man needs a piggy wife that's ready to go to war for him.
Yeah, that's what we want. Yes.
Josh can confirm.
Absolutely.
In a lot of ways, Kermit is a wonderful model of masculinity, although he's a little bit of a doormat. We do get him raising a toast to his employer, which, folks,
the founder of the feast.
If you think your manager is your friend, you're wrong. I'm sorry to break it to you.
Yeah, and that's I don't know, coming back to that scene, finishing off such a sort of joyous, optimistic, warm, welcoming sequence with the ghost of Christmas present, with the shadows of the empty chair in the corner and the unused walking stick. It's like, I am feeling things.
I didn't expect a Muppet movie to go that dark. I mean, I know it's in the book, but I kind of thought they were going to glaze over that. They didn't pull their punches.
No, I mean, Christmas Present doesn't pull his punches. He's very like,
the Christmas
here it is.
Population.
Exactly. Love that moment.
Kids live in this world, and especially like this year, after all this time, I think as someone with chronic health conditions, like these past 2 years really illustrated how many people think like Scrooge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of a few people who'd benefit from a visit from the ghosts.
Yeah. And they think of us a little bit as that we should, as surplus population. And there are so many people who are going unmourned at the moment, or hopefully are being mourned by people they love, because Tiny Tim is kind of an answer to ableism in a way, because like Bob loves him even if he can't produce in the way that that Scrooge thinks you need to. He's still a valid person. He still has things to contribute.
And that's how love should be.
Perfectly put. Yeah.
Can we talk about Fred and his wife?
Oh, yeah.
No, yeah.
I will say, I think this version of Fred is a lot more of a dick than the book version.
100%.
I mean, in the book, they also have the 20 questions thing where he's like, no one wants Scrooge around. But then he's like, but in all seriousness, he's my uncle and I love him and I wish he was here. But in this version, it's just like, no, we don't like him.
In the book, he carries on Fanny's spirit in terms of like continuing to unconditionally love his uncle, despite his uncle being an ass to him. I think Fred is actually probably my least favorite part of this adaptation, and I'm realizing it as I'm about to describe what I was about to describe. But there's missing a reconciliation at the end between Ebenezer and Fred that is usually present in most adaptations. But Ebenezer gets the spirit of Christmas zonked back into him, goes and buys the goose, and then Doll ends with the song at the Cratchit's house. But he never goes and makes amends to Fred.
I mean, he brings him some presents, but he doesn't really say anything. He just hands them over and then leaves.
I wanted more.
Which it's like, you know what? Good for him. Go spend Christmas with the Cratchits. Your nephew's kind of a dick.
Well, Fred's there at the end, though, isn't he? At the table.
He is.
You know what? Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
It's like the whole town's there.
Yeah, everyone's there. So he's included, and it's implied that the reconciliation has happened, but we haven't really seen it, properly. It's not given us yet the time.
That's a smart idea. Let's the entire London town go and gather at Bob Cratchit's house, which is like 5 square feet.
It only works in a musical.
Well, at the very least, it wouldn't be cold in there.
A lot of body heat.
Mhm.
Of course, in the book, he sends him the food with no indication of who he is. And then one of my favorite bits is at the end when Cratchit comes to work and he gaslights him, but it's funny. It's sweet.
Cratchit, where were you? Like, we cool.
And therefore, I will raise your salary. But of course, if we did it the way that is in the book, we wouldn't get Piggy Cratchit giving us, and therefore I will raise you at the roof.
Yeah. I love that
You ready
part.
to catch these hands?
All I want in my life is to find a Miss Piggy.
She was a little bit of fat representation we got when we were kids. And
Yes.
Mhm.
we didn't get a lot.
Love of a voluptuous lady.
Yes. We do.
Josh.
Josh is
I
all
saw you
blushing.
a pin-up of Miss Piggy, I swear.
Muppet Sex and Trauma. There it is. There I brought it in.
We've come full circle.
And how Josh would Kermit react to a pin-up of Miss Piggy?
He would do the thing where his nose gets pulled down. I feel like I'm misrepresenting myself. I didn't bring the sex into this particular podcast. The Marleys did.
And then the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come arrives. And boy, is that kind of scary for a kid.
That's a fantastic puppet, though.
Oh, yeah.
Really good.
I like that they didn't just go with like somebody standing in like a black cloak. Like they actually built a puppet.
Yeah, it's probably my least favorite of the puppets, just because the others, are really something new and specific to this adaptation. But it's executed really well, and it's foreboding, and it's not because it's not done really well. It's just because that's what's yet to come, and it's the hooded figure, thing. Whereas the others are more. The others, I'm really like, oh, this is the Muppet version of these spirits,
I did like the implication that this yet to come is not very far off. The costumes are the same, the set is the same. He will die alone soon unless he does something.
I have like one little like nitpick. Scrooge watches the scene where like the people are selling off his stuff that they've stolen from his house, and then he says, "Who is that man that they're talking about?" And I'm like, "Sir, do you not recognize your own property?
It's
like that's your
yeah.
Those are your curtains, right?"
I mean, in the book, it's extremely dark and ill and just like a weird little hovel, but they don't convey that here.
Daylight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, what's the excuse here? I don't know. Like I said,
I completely agree.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree. I think it throws me out when I'm watching it, but I think we can justify it with the, he knows it's him, but he's just, he's in denial. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is, I guess, my other nitpick with this particular adaptation is by the time the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come pops in, Scrooge is pretty much emotionally already there. Like he ends Christmas Present and he goes, he says something, he has a line that I don't remember from the book where he says something like, and I'm basically just going to paraphrase the Gilmore Girls theme song, but he says something like, where you lead, I will follow.
Yeah.
But in a really like conciliatory way that when I was watching it, I was like, oh, I guess Yet to Come didn't really have to work that hard. So there's a movie called Legends of the Fall, which is a very, very young Brad Pitt. There was a line towards the end of the film where Brad Pitt's character, after all these horrible things have both happened to him and some things that he's like caused to happen or done, where he's just despairing and he's like, I'm just a lightning rod for pain and for grief, and it's too late for me, basically. And Anthony Hopkins, as his dad, he gets this great line where he he kind of like leans forward in repose and he goes, "You're not damned," and it's his way of saying it's not too late. And it's easy. It's very easy. It's very easy after a series of heartbreaks and after a series of mistakes and after a series of just awful things that have both happened and been perpetrated by a person. Because Scrooge did some terrible things too. to think, I deserve misery. I deserve this empty room with this unlit house. I deserve to work through Christmas. I deserved how my father treated me. Like all of those things. It's so easy to think that. And it's so easy to think that it's too late. And I think that's the greatest gift that the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come gives Scrooge, is the understanding that it's not too late. That it's not too late to change. It's not too late to do better. It's not too late to make amends and to make up for, what's been done previously. It's not too late to take responsibility. And it doesn't absolve Scrooge from, any of the things that he did, and it wouldn't absolve anybody of any consequences that come their way. But it's not too late to do better next.
Yeah.
And then in a lot of ways, that's where Scrooge starts the story is, it's too late for me. And he ends realizing that it never was.
And I think the other thing that the ghost does is it's not too late, but it is now. If you can't put it off. It's not too late, but don't wait for it.
Like global warming.
Yeah. Or forgiving student loans and paying your workers actual livable wages. And then, of course, we see some tenderness around death. And that, I think, is when Miss Piggy and Kermit the Frog managed to break our hearts.
Mm.
God, I was crying.
I know. It's like, when do you ever see Miss Piggy being vulnerable?
I think that's what got me, because I'm so used to any version of Piggy being just an absolute wall.
Yeah.
She knows what she wants and she goes for it. But seeing her try to suck it up for Kermit, and then seeing her also taking care of the kids of the Pogs. I mean, it was really.
Yeah, it's when Kermit breaks, when he's saying he'll be able to see the ducks. Oh. This
might be my favorite choice this adaptation made, and I don't remember this being the case in the story, but they took the exact same lines, and speaking of camera work, the exact same framing of the first time that Scrooge went into the Cratchit's home, and replicated it shot for shot and beat for beat when the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come brings him in and Tim is already gone. Right up to when his kids, the daughters lead the charge, but when his kids run up to him when he comes into the door, instead of slamming him against the wall because they're Piggy's kids, they just very gently put their arms around their grieving father, and it's so affecting. And even the lines are the same. It's so affecting.
And then, we move to the reveal of the tombstone.
The reveal.
Because as you like to say, Josh, sometimes some anvils need to be dropped.
Yes.
So we know this. Scrooge knows this, but he's got to see it.
It's too late for subtle. That's for sure.
But it's make no mistake, if you don't change who you are now, you are effed.
Yeah.
It's not just that he'll die. It's that he'll die alone and unloved. Everybody's going to die. Sorry, spoilers. Yeah. Everybody's going to die.
Josh.
I'm sorry, Charlie.
What is Aaron?
You guys.
Mm-hmm.
What does Aaron say to Dargo? You will die, but not today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's that he dies alone and unloved, and people celebrate his death.
Then it is morning, and he's not dead.
What day is it?
He's as giddy as a schoolboy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so used to seeing Michael Caine playing serious, sometimes kind of dour-ish characters, that seeing him all oh, I'm as merry as an angel. This is so delightful. I'm as happy as a schoolboy.
I'm Michael Caine.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do a Cockney.
You were so close. You were so close.
I'm Michael Caine.
If you say my cocaine in a Cockney accent, it will sound like
Michael Caine.
How Michael Caine says his own name. My cocaine.
I'm Michael Caine.
That was really good.
Yeah, I mean, this is Alfie and Zulu. Such a yes. I know those are older films. I'm older. But he's had such a remarkable career.
So I just found out reading the trivia for this episode that Michael Caine's real name. Does anyone know his real
yes.
name? It's
I know this bit.
What is it?
Maurice Micklewhite.
It is indeed Maurice Micklewhite, which is why in one of the shots you see they go in front of Micklewhite's. They name one of the stores after him.
Ah,
See, I think that's an adorable name. It doesn't have quite the same gravitas, but I really like Maurice. What's the name?
Yes, he's somewhere with
Micklewhite.
Archie Leach, which was Cary Grant's real name.
Maurice Micklewhite, I swear.
Okay, talking about like the care they took with this production. Did you notice the footprints on the little boy rabbit? They made footprints on the snow when they look down. It looks
how unusual it is to see like a full Muppet, like, you know, full body. Because usually you just see him from like maybe the waist up at most, like, you know, comes just bobbing on the screen. You never see like Kermit's legs.
Well, yeah, when Kermit's ice skating and you suddenly see his legs,
Yeah.
and he's just like, this is too weird. No, Kermit does not exist by the waist.
Kind of like that one episode of Farscape where like Rigel's chair wasn't working or something, so he had to like hobble around on foot, and you're like, what? No, get back in the chair. This is wrong.
only this wasn't done with bad CGI. And then we get a reappearance of Josh's favorite Muppet.
Yes, and he gives him a scarf, and he
Gives
goes,
him a scarf.
"Is this for me?" Beep, beep, beep.
Like you're all black, Scroogey. You need some red. You know, pop of color.
And it perfectly fit with the theme of like unconditional worth. Like it was just an altruistic gift. People can give people gifts, and they don't have to deserve the gift. It's up to the giver to decide what to give.
And it isn't reciprocal to the charity that he gave. It's just you had the impulse to give. I had the impulse to give. I'm Egyptian. I don't know if I've mentioned that on the podcast before, but and giving is a big part of the, you know, my culture as I was taught, it's how we show love and so many things is to try and give a thoughtful gift. And a scarf may not be a particularly Egyptian gift. Well, actually, it kind of is, but different kind of scarf. There is something. I think there's something special about giving something that's warm and knitted and cozy, something like that. But also, like, he just spontaneously gives him the scarf he's wearing.
Yeah, it's not just anything. He like takes it off and like.
Yeah, and I don't know about you folks, but I personally kind of love that Michael Caine isn't a great singer.
It's a sort of song that doesn't need amazing pipes. It needs to be sung with joy and warmth and love.
And he put character into it, and that's what's important.
Yeah, one of my favorite bits of Christmas is the carols and the singing. Like, even my dad doesn't really get Christmas because being Egyptian, it's just not his thing. But the one thing he gets is the music. He loves the Hallelujah chorus. And my English grandfather had this opera he loved called A Malden Night Visitors, which my dad loved. So we would have that playing every year. Yes, I'm me. So there is a song that goes, "This is my box. This is my box. I never travel without my box," and which hits differently.
Neither do I.
But yeah, so like to me, one of the big things about Christmas has always been the music, and you don't have to be good enough to sing the Hallelujah chorus. You just have to carry a tune,
or be able to mouth along really well. Look, it's a performance. Like if you're not singing the words, though, you have to really bring the performance to it and bring the drama. Raise your arms up at the end, at the climax.
Do you guys have favorite Christmas songs?
I don't know if I have a favorite, but I was on TikTok last night and I found something interesting. Apparently the words to Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas as we know them were not the original words. Actually, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas used to be like, when it was originally written, it's actually quite dark and depressing. But apparently Judy Garland like asked the songwriter to change the lyrics because she said, I don't want to be responsible for ruining Christmas with a sad Christmas song.
Oh yes, and
So
the
they made
original. I thought the original was beautiful. I love a Christmas song that's mournful.
I think there's a lot of impetus to like treat Christmas like it's this, like super happy, jolly time. But for a lot of people, it can be really sad, and there's nothing wrong with that. So there can be beauty in sadness too.
And it doesn't have to be this giant thing. You can just, if you can be with people you love, that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you can't, because a lot of us couldn't last year, for sure, you can, if you find ways to be with people you love. Like we are right now.
Have to muddle through somehow.
And have yourself a merry little Christmas now. Favorite Christmas songs?
Favorite Christmas song? I wouldn't say I have a favorite, but I guess the one I always end up singing along to is Last Christmas. It's just a nice little, kind of sad, but, little ditty. Last Christmas, I gave you my heart, and the very next day, you gave it away. This year, save it from, is it tears? Tears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because you would only say from cheer.
Yeah, I was just like, tears, like, is your heart crying? Like, maybe not as, but it's a cute little song. I like it.
Save me from tears, I'll give it to somebody special.
And I always interpreted that as like, I'm going to give it to myself. Like when I was a kid, I remember I always just like, I didn't imagine them actually giving it to someone else. I'd be like, why, when last Christmas you gave away your heart and like someone trod all over it, why would you then do the same thing, next year? So I always kind of interpret it as like they give it to themselves, but I don't think that's the actual text. But
damn, young Charley.
I like
there could be
it.
something empowering about that.
Yeah, Christmas here is beach and the beach.
It's a beach.
I love Run Run Rudolph.
Yeah.
It's a bop. Out of all the reindeer, you're the mastermind. Chuck Berry, man.
Josh, Christmas songs?
So I actually have a lot of love for Christmas music. I really enjoy Harry Connick Jr.'s Christmas album, When My Heart Finds Christmas. I love the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, but I think my favorite Christmas song is definitely Carol of the Bells.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one. The 1 year in high school that I wasn't in show choir, that's when they did that song. And I was like, what, did you wait until I left?
Did anyone? It was just reminding me of when I was in grade 6 when I was in our Christmas pageant. I was the Christmas robot.
Oh, the classic
Christmas robot.
Of course, that iconic character from the Christmas canon.
It's from Charles Darwin's Christmas work, isn't it?
Yeah,
I was someone's present. And the framing device for the Christmas pageant was people teaching me what Christmas was.
Every year, all 4 years in high school, I had the absolute joy to be on the timpani drums during our rendition of the medley from How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Oh,
which was
of course you were a band kid.
Of course I was a band kid. Not just a band kid, I was a percussionist. And our band director would sing, they would sing the Boris Karloff lyrics. Yeah.
Mr. Grinch.
Mr. Grinch.
And there was this part, I always remember this one part where it's in the theme that plays when he's like sledding down the mountain. It's that kind of like upbeat, kind of a thing. Where I had to go from one timpani drum to the other one, and so I would swing my arm above my head and hit it, just like that. It was all we just had a blast. It was always very theatrical.
We did a Christmas Carol one year when I was in high school, and I actually got to play Mrs. Fezziwig, which was cool because I got to sing a solo. I got to hit the high note.
Damn, they give Mrs. Fezziwig a solo?
Yes. Mr. Fezziwig's annual Christmas ball.
I believe my first line as the Christmas robot was line. Because I memorized, I have an excellent memory for many things, but as soon as I got out on stage, I forgot everything.
Mm-hmm.
I was in third grade, so, you know.
As one does.
Hopefully it was cute.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure you were the best
adorable
robot for Christmas that you could have.
I can't remember any Christmas pageants, but once in the youth sort of drama group I was in, we were unpaid performers for some sort of Christmas event in Hyde Park. The Sydney knockoff version of Hyde Park, not London, Hyde Park. And we basically, what we did is we changed the lyrics to 12 Days of Christmas to make it Aussie. So I can't remember the lyrics, but it was things like we'd replace things, you know, like, and 12 mozzie bites, mosquito bites, like things like that, make it Aussie. And we were dressed as angels, but with the cork hats, the Australian, you know, wide brim with corks hanging down to like keep the flies away.
If I hear cork hat, I immediately think of like the Ferengi heads from Steve It's from Star Trek with the ears and the butt and the, you know, the little eyebrow ridges.
And there is our traditional Star Trek reference.
There we go. We got it. We've never been a big Christmas family. Just an excuse to eat good food.
Yeah.
That's what Christmas is.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need, I think with traditions, you don't need to do the traditions that everybody has. But every family, I think, has its traditions. One of my family's Christmas traditions, I refer to as the Christmas apology. Every year, my mother gives, at some point or another, my mother will get very serious and go, I'm sorry, it's not a very Christmassy Christmas. Even though it is exactly as Christmassy a Christmas as every other Christmas. And I swear, a couple of times I stayed for Christmas at my sister's house. I'm sorry, it's not a very Christmassy Christmas. When
you said the Christmas apology, I thought you were going to start I thought it was going to be something like the Festivus airing of grievances. No, I call it the traditional Christmas apology because I take the piss out of my mom. Every year she does this, and every year I say, Mom, it's the traditional Christmas apology. You do this every year. And this is exactly as Christmassy as any other Christmas. And our Christmas is usually me, my mom, and my dad sitting around drinking tea and reading books that we opened that day. Like, that is our Christmas. Last year, we spent a prolonged amount of time attempting to make my dad's iPad talk to the TV. So for those of you who aren't having a particularly Christmassy Christmas at home, it can be Christmassy to not be very Christmassy.
I agree.
Yeah.
Completely. I agree with you completely.
But hopefully we've provided you a little Christmas cheer talking about the Christmas Carol. And yeah, we just have that last wonderful scene of everybody magically fitting into a tiny little house, because you can do that in a musical.
And it's just not very...
It's miracle.
And Tiny Tim did not die. It is not COVID safe. Well, if you're all Muppets, as long as you have enough Muppets between you to make up 6.
Oh, that's true. We need to keep 3 Muppets apart at all time, people.
Yes.
Okay?
Make room for Jesus. It's like make room for Fozzie Bear.
But we do have it confirmed that Tiny Tim did not die.
God bless us, everyone.
And there it is.
I can actually read the. He had no further intercourse with spirits, but lived.
What Christmas Carol did we just review?
That one scene from Ghostbusters.
Right?
I've got to say, this is making me very gay. And I mean that in the traditional, I'm very gay. We're all gay, everyone.
Exactly.
Gay and
we now
joyous.
are gay apparel.
Like the Yuletide gay.
I mean, do you know how many times this book refers to someone having ejaculated? Because at the time, that was a perfectly acceptable word for somebody having spoken something sharply.
Sometimes
I know.
that's how
I
it
love
goes.
reading the old Sherlock Holmes stories, and it's like every three paragraphs, it's like Holmes ejaculated, and I'm like, okay, Watson, I don't care what you and Holmes get up to in your personal time.
Ren, you do care though. Let's be honest.
I do.
So once again, he had no further intercourse with spirits, but lived upon the total abstinence principle. Oh, well, that's a shame. Ever afterwards. And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well if any man alive possessed the knowledge. May that truly be said of us and of all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone. But let's not live on the total abstinence
I
principle
don't
because that's
want to
no
live
fun.
until no.
I'm not living. No,
Much rather.
Have intercourse with spirits.
I'm a ho for a reason.
I can't.
Yeah, I think Patrick Swayze has something to say about that.
I was going to explain
hell yeah.
sharply. That's a good place to end.
So yeah, what is your favorite part?
Picking one is difficult. Favorite part, probably just Miss Piggy. Absolutely tearing Scrooge a new one. That film could have, if he had waited just a second longer to for his punchline of raise your salary. This movie would have gone in a very dark and violent direction that would not have been suited for children, and she absolutely tore him apart. So that's my favorite.
It would have been like,
yeah.
oh
That was great. That was fantastic.
yeah. I think my favorite part is definitely when when Scrooge wakes up and he's all merry and giddy, and it's very adorable. Like I said, not used to seeing Michael Caine in a happy role, so it's nice to see.
My favorite part is for sure the Ghost of Christmas Present taking the piss out of Scrooge and being like, "We better die quickly and decrease the surplus population." It's fantastic.
My favorite part, oh God, I did this to myself because I don't know how to choose between the Ghost of Christmas Present song. No, I think it's Scrooge's song at the end. Although One More Asleep Till Christmas always makes my heart warm. This whole film just is delightful.
This film is a warm hug.
And by the time that this is on YouTube, it really will be One More Sleep Till Christmas.
It really will
be.
In the Western Hemisphere.
So, friends, thank you for joining us. And we hope you have a very Merry Christmas or Happy Festivus, Solstice. So, guests, starting with Ren, where can people find you?
Well, I am at home here on YouTube, Ren the Barbarian. Also on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram under those names. If you're interested in Star Trek or, just media in general, come and check out my channel. The plan is to have a video out on the 1st of January, getting back into Star Trek. I took a little break for the holidays, but I do plan on getting back into it January 1st. So,
and which episode is that?
That's going to be Amok Time, which is, a completely normal episode of Star Trek in which nothing at all crazy or homoerotic happens.
God, I can't wait to see what you do with it.
It's going to be a 2-part review. It's the first part's going to be about the episode itself and like Vulcan culture and stuff like that. And then the second part is just going to be all about a certain queer aspect of the show that I've yet to talk about in length. And it will be at length. I'm working on the script for that right now. I'm up to 9 pages and it's like really big blocks of text. So get ready for that.
Speaking of sex and Star Trek, friend of mine, Jessie Gender, will by this time have put out her epic 2.5-hour sex in Star Trek discussion of Gene's vision, in which I have a cameo. So that will be out when this is out, and it's amazing. I can't believe I had the honor to be part of that.
I thought you were about to use that as a segue over to Charley, and I was like, wow, way to call Charley out.
Those are two of my favorite things. Yeah.
Yeah. Charley, I think mostly you can find in our Discord if she.
Yes, I was going to say I'm in the Discord. I'm in other places, and if you know where I am, then you know where I am. But I will be in the Discord.
Very mysterious of you. Come on over to Instagram to find me at Josh Gosdin. We're talking about food and self-care by and large, and mostly we're just hanging out and having a good time. And
you will find me at the Costume Codex on YouTube or on Twitter at Blue Stock in Sara. Hopefully, I will be doing more videos, and there will definitely be more Muppet Sex and Trauma. This is going out on December the 24th, and then 2 weeks after that, you will get our video for Durka Returns, which we have already recorded. And following that, you will have a familiar face. If you've watched this, their face will be familiar because Charley joined us for a human reaction. And we also filmed our human reaction to a human reaction. And hopefully by the time we get through those episodes, Jack will have come back from his little jaunt to Sydney and will be able to record for the episodes following that. If not, we might have to, there might be a just Josh and I talking about something else episode. So yeah, there will be.
Doesn't look so jazzed.
I'm vamping.
When Jack's away, Josh can play.
No, when Jack's away, Josh is sad.
Yeah.
We all are. We miss you, Jack.
Yes, we miss you, Jack, but Jack's mom will be thrilled, I'm sure, to have
enjoy your holiday.
I will remember you.
I swear to God.
Okay, so I am going to close with Dickens' preface that he wrote for this story. I have endeavored in this ghostly little book to raise the ghost of an idea which shall not put my readers out of humor with themselves, with each other, with the season, or with me. May it haunt their houses pleasantly, and no one wish to lay it. Their faithful friend and servant, Charles Dickens, sorry, CD.
Live from the Galapagos Islands.
So yeah, this has been a bunch of silly weirdos at Christmas. Bye, folks.
Bye. Bye. Happy holidays.
I can actually read
the original Darwin.
I'm never gonna let her live that down.
Nope.
Scrooge evolved to be rich, and Bob Cratchit is the de-evolution. I don't know. We're getting Ayn Randy. I'm sorry.
Not Ayn Randy.
Randy Giles. You named me Randy Giles.
Respectfully, we are a bunch of crackheads.
It's the nog. It's the nog.
It's the nog.
I don't even have alcohol in mine.
I don't have alcohol in mine.
It's just
sugar. Drunk on the Christmas spirit.
Yes, we have drunk the Christmas spirit. Yeah.
Oh, come in and know me better, man.